Welcome to the latest episode of Liquid Life, featuring entrepreneur, health and wellness expert, and legend in the space, Shawn Wells. We are so grateful to have Shawn join us today. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us. And man, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on this show. When I first came into the water space, it really was through supplements and the health and wellness space. I got sober about 11 years ago and fell in love with different water through then, but I've been on supplements my entire life, and maybe we can delve more into that and how that relates specifically to water. But first and foremost, I want to tee it up to Shawn to talk about his new book real quick, and the energy formula, and his course around that book as well.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Preston. It is international bestseller. It was listed in the top 20 by USA Today and Forbes. It is called the Energy Formula, and it is an acronym for experiment, nutrition, exercise, routines, growth, and your tribe. Six different pillars for not just biohacking, but really optimizing your life for health span over lifespan, right? Like we want to live quality life. I even like the idea of youth span. It's a new term that I've coined that like I'm seeing people in their 20s and 30s look at anti-aging. Why? Because they want to remain young and they want to outperform their peers at their same age. We all want to say, I am looking, feeling, doing better if I'm 30 years old than the other 30-year-olds. And so this idea of youth span, I think, is important. Health span is living free from disease for as long as possible. And lifespan is just how long you live. And we know that that's really not a great marker because people can live with disease for a long time. I used to work in nursing homes, and we'd have people there in their 60s there for 20, 30 years on 100 plus medications, living in essentially bed bound or wheelchair bound. We've gotten really good at extending a poor quality life.
Mm.
And I think it's really important that anti-aging starts the day you're born, because it's just like the idea in Shakespeare where the grave digger goes to work the day you were born. We start dying the day we're born, and
Mm.
that's not something we're supposed to fear. It's supposed to be something that we absolutely embrace because it's what makes life special and worth living, but also take care of your body. So that's something that I think gets lost quite a bit when we're told to, eat ultra processed foods, that everything's covered in glyphosate, when we have poor quality water, and all the things that we'll talk about on this show that isn't how we're supposed to live, isn't how we used to live, isn't how hopefully we won't live in the future. Hopefully, this is a small pocket in time that we can correct.
I hear you on that. And I'm gonna try and not take it as a personal attack as someone who just turned 30. But man, that's wild. Over 100 medications, 60 years old in the nursing home. It seems like that's where we've gotten with the current state of pharmaceuticals and what these companies, really want to get us addicted and put us, because, when you get older, what I've seen in my grandparents is you get on one blood thinner or one, medication, and then that creates all sorts of complications. So they got to get on another medication, and it snowballs into this whole
It's a
thing.
real thing. It's called polypharmacy. It's something that we saw in the hospital and certainly the nursing home often. Also, in particular in the nursing home, we would have a rounding physician that would look in on the patient slash resident. And what would happen is a specialist, an expert, would put them on a certain medication. Say the cardiologist would put them on a medication, and then the urologist would put them on a medication. The rounding physician who knows them better, sees them more often, is scared to take them off anything or change anything because they could end up going to court. And what would happen in court is that you're a general physician, you are not the specialist. Why did you do that? And so then they could be held liable. Um, so it's a real phenomenon that's happening where medications start accruing. And if you're in these hospitals or nursing homes for years, there is literally, like I said, we would have 7 to 10 pages of MARS, these medical application records, where they flip through and there's about 10 different medications per page. So it would be around 100 medications. And then we would get people that were demented or end of life, and we would end up doing comfort care measures where we pull them off all the medications, giving them some kind of quality of life in their last few days. And they would have a massive rally that was unexpected, where
Mm,
they seemed very cognizant and cogent. And I'm not saying that they, lived for, years beyond that, but it was often fascinating to see like a whole different side of a human being that wasn't over medicated. And so there's just too many medications, and we don't know the interactions of all these medications. And to be honest, even with supplements, I don't like overusing supplements. The
mm,
body isn't supposed to get all of these different compounds constantly assaulted with it. There's the cytochrome P450 pathway with the liver, and the liver can just say, like, hey, this is too much. There's too much coming in, too much going on. And it kind of puts a barrier up, if you will. Um, so yeah, exactly. It's something that needs to be addressed is polypharmacy, over medication. This is where we're at right now.
mm. Fascinating and also sad. Um,
Hmm.
And that's interesting you say that, the same thing can happen with supplements, right? I definitely can tend to be that person who has, I save all of my supplements because I might need them in the future. My wife doesn't like that aspect about me, but she's grateful if she gets sick and ends up needing it. But yeah, do you think it's more the dosage or is it more the amount of different sorts of supplements that you're putting into your body, the quantity of dosage, or is it more so the quantity of assortment that is the big difference maker for your liver in
I,
particular?
I think I think I think there's a time and a place for everything. I think like there's kind of like orthomolecular dosing where you're doing very large doses that have like at a supraphysiologic level that have some different effect. So, for example, vitamin C at 60 milligrams will prevent scurvy. Scurvy is not something that we're very concerned with at this moment, but maybe at gram doses, it could have anti-cancer, anti-mold, like powerful antioxidant effects, anti-inflammatory effects could work well with some of these viruses potentially as well. And so it has a very different effect. And I think the thing is, to me, is one, using intuition, and two, rotating these things out. And, whether you're someone that's on these anti-aging protocols or a bodybuilder using steroids or something like this, like pyramiding up and down is very effective.
Mm,
This is something like when you look at how receptors and some of these transport pathways work, you can build up and saturate and then taper back down and then bring in something else. And to me, this is a really smart way to do things because, for example, like with testosterone, let's say testosterone replacement therapy or could be estrogen replacement therapy or what have you, when you're replacing your endogenous levels of the hormone, your in the body levels of the hormone, you stop making that, right? When you're giving exogenous hormones out of the body, supplement, medication, whatever, you stop making it. And so it makes sense to me to supplement, to add, to support your body, but not like overwhelm your body and stop your body from doing what it could naturally do, if that makes sense. I think there's a way to do this. And like same with like with adaptogens, for example, like I like to rotate them in and out. There's some crossover in their effects where it might not make sense to like be taking rhodiola, ashwagandha, ginseng, lion's mane, all these different things all at once. But taking one day, another one another day, or taking one for 4 weeks and then another one for a different 4 weeks could be very effective. All this said, there's very little research on what I'm saying. I think there's just a thought process that makes sense. I will also say there's another area that doesn't have much research, but I think this is the case from everything I have seen. And especially when you do look at the work of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Bruce Lipton, the state of your nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and whether you are typically hypervigilant and in sympathetic nervous system state, fight, flight, freeze, versus parasympathetic, rest, digest, and sex. Like this is a very different state of the nervous system, whether you're in one or the other. Most of us are overly in sympathetic nervous system because that hypervigilance, because of trauma responses, because of social media, these kinds of things. We're in sympathetic nervous system too much, and we're not getting that kind of yin and yang balance of sympathetic, parasympathetic. And when we're constantly in sympathetic, we're not resting and digesting. So what does that mean? Your body, when it's in fight, flight, or freeze, is going to be shunting blood flow, nutrients, resources to survival, not into optimizing, not into digesting, not into utilizing, storing, into these kinds of things, right? So what does that mean if you're taking supplements or medications or peptides or stem cells or really great water? You might not be as accepting, you might not take in those nutrients as well and utilize those nutrients as well if you're not getting into parasympathetic.
Hmm.
Whether you're a Christian or not, I had a Christian upbringing when I was young, and we would gather around the table and say, the prayer and the Lord, thank you for this food and this nourishment I'm about to receive. This is dropping into parasympathetic.
Hmm.
It's gratitude,
Hmm.
and then it's an affirmation and placebo effect around what that food is going to do and where it's going to go.
Hmm.
All of that is very, very powerful, no matter what your religion. So if we can start practicing whenever we're about to receive nutrition or sunshine or great water or whatever it is, to stop, ground, get into our breath, have gratitude, think about what it is we're about to receive and what it's supposed to do for us, instead of just chucking a handful of supplements in your mouth. Think about what it's supposed to do, where it's supposed to go. I don't have the research, but I will bet you if I could do the research, I will show a much more dramatic effect of whatever it is you're taking, because the placebo effect is real. Gratitude research is real. Breath work, grounding, getting into parasympathetics is real. And if I put all that together, it just makes sense to me.
Incredible. And it makes so much sense, right? That prayer before the meal, the intention, the gratitude, the affirmation, the we're in a culture where there's so much about manifesting. Well, picturing what this supplement is doing in my body when I take it. I mean, just that last 2 minutes is going to change my life when I put a handful of supplements in my hand in the morning and, subsequently put it in my mouth and drink some good quality water with it. Um, I'm going to start practicing that. And I already know that there is definitely going to be a shift. And I really hope that you get the funding to do that research because I am totally on board with it. And I think you're going to find exactly what you just mentioned.
The
And
companies I started working with, Mindvalley States, I have um, I'm one of the best performing authors on Mindvalley around. I have a whole ultimate guide to supplements on Mindvalley. It's a kind of a personal development platform if you're aware of Mindvalley. But we develop supplements for them called Mindvalley States. And it's about dropping into certain states. So there's focus, bliss, gasm, dream, zen. And one of the things that I brought into that was on the directions, it talks about doing this. Like
mm,
before you take this capsule, let's think about what this does. And then in time, if you've studied NLP, this is going even further, neuro linguistics programming, which is the basis for a lot of the work by Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Jim Quick. All of these guys use NLP behind their work. That psychosomatic anchoring means in time, your body will start to make that shortcut where when you just pick up that capsule, your body's already starting to change enzymes, neurotransmitters, hormones, because it already knows what it needs to do. The body is brilliant.
mm,
And so if you practice this, this is the idea of becoming an expert, become an expert in the intuition and the power of your own body.
mm, incredible. My wife is really been on this incredible trajectory the past 2 years. She took a somatic movement and healing
Mm-hmm.
course, and she's been a dancer and then a Pilates instructor her entire life, really. And it completely changed her trajectory in her career and her Pilates teaching. And now she does somatic experiencing work. And I am a great test pilot for a lot of it because I tend to be in the sympathetic nervous system a lot. That fight, flight, fawn is another one, and freeze mode. And she helps me get into that parasympathetic through different grounding breath work, somatic experiencing. But it's a whole new world out there, man. And it's so fun to see how, yes, the physical realm, the supplements, the water, the food that we're putting into our body, and also it requires the spiritual and emotional side to have that balance for them to be effective with each other. Yeah, into this symbiotic relationship. The thing that's coming to mind and one of my questions is, have you heard of Dr. Masaru Emoto's research around water? And subsequently, what are your thoughts on this?
Super fascinating. I have always wanted to explore that more because I don't know like how much it's been replicated, but like it is interesting. I know that water can store information. That water is kind of a data collector. So I think there's a lot there that is kind of beyond my realm of expertise, if you will. Like I think it's kind of like when we get into quantum where there's less data than I want, but it also is very compelling. Um, it's kind of like that for me. Like I'm absolutely fascinated about that. Like, how you, I mean, this has definitely been shown with plants, with pets, certainly with children, like how you speak to all of these is going to affect it, right? Like, so I think it's absolutely fascinating. Um, but I haven't spent a lot of time on that specifically.
Yeah, and that's kind of the biggest criticism and point of contention for a lot of people in the water community and, of course, the scientific community is if this could be replicated, then replicate it and make the scientific evidence abundantly clear. And so I see that side, and I also see exactly what you're talking about. And if I believe that water can hold and store memory, and we talk about living water in a spiritual and a physical sense, like why would it be any different than plants, animals, my kids? And so my follow-up question to you for that is, at the very beginning you said, oh, like I know water can hold and store memory. Where does that uh, sense of knowing come from in your own research?
Again, similar. Like I don't have the, the clear data. It's just what I've read repeatedly from a number of scientists. Like I don't know what to cite there, but
Yeah.
there's also like a lot of work that I've done. I speak a lot. I haven't explained this on this podcast yet, but I have done a lot of speaking on psychedelics and talked about my work personally on psychedelics. Uh, and there's just a lot of things that do come with knowing that doesn't have the science yet. Um, but there's some powerful work that I've done in that space and things I've seen, experienced, and felt that I don't have the research for yet.
Yeah, but it's that intuition, it's that connectedness. And I feel very similarly about not only this idea of water being almost genetic code to our human computer program, and knowing when there's a water that really resonates with me and makes sense for my programming, and that it comes from a place, maybe it's 150 million years old and it's never been touched by humans and never interfered before. I've had some pretty wild experiences in those realms, like you just talked about, with water in particular. And it's interesting. We, as Americans, so deeply crave the exact scientific evidence. Well, then there's all this scientific evidence saying, oh, it's great to be on 100 medications, and prescription pills, and all of these are incredible. They're fantastic. They're going to do this, this, and this for you and be great for your health. Well, who are those studies funded by? What is the real agenda? Uh, to me, the scientific method is exactly what we're doing right now. We're having this conversation. We're creating hypotheses, and then we go back into, your lab and my studio and water facility and do some tests. And so, how do you, regulate it with the FDA? What are their intentions? What are, who are they really making their money with? Is it us kind of semi out there woo-woo guys? We still got collared shirts on. So, it's getting somewhere, Shawn. But it's such an awesome time to be in these spaces because more and more people through the power of social media are seeing your clips and taking your courses and watching our podcast and being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be drinking raw Houston or Los Angeles tap water unfiltered. And maybe that reverse osmosis system is actually like not giving my body the minerals and nutrients, electrolytes that it needs. And that's why I feel tired all of the time. And, I'm eating this kind of crappy processed food, and wait, there's minerals and nutrients in food. It's just not carbohydrates, fats and proteins and sugar. Like, what? So it's a really awesome time to be in these spaces.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think, there's a lot of things when I was in my nutrition program at Chapel Hill 25 years ago. Wow, it's been a minute. But we looked at things kind of that way, and we yes, certainly talked about vitamins and minerals and deficiency. But what I've been finding more and more is one, like that orthomolecular discussion. There's different effects for the same nutrient at different levels.
Hmm.
But two, some of that can come from Similar to how I was talking about the psychosomatic effects and the shortcuts that the body has, because the body's smart and doesn't want to waste energy. That a lot of these things have signaling effects ahead of them being a substrate or a cofactor or a nutrient to be used in an enzymatic reaction, like in the body. It goes beyond that. There is a signaling effect of many of these compounds. So it's telling the body that when we get vitamin B5, that at this dose, and it's co-administered with this other compound, that you want to turn on these epigenetics, you want to turn on these hormones and neurotransmitters, and all of it has to do with just our evolution across millions of years of survival and optimizing for survival slash performance slash reproduction.
Mm.
And there's so many things that are happening in milliseconds that we are still unaware of to this day. It's absolutely fascinating. We're seeing, like, you know 20 years ago we weren't talking about bioregulatory peptides, and now we're talking
Yeah.
about two or three amino acids together can be a signal to tell the body to do something. And before, we just thought that was amino acids or protein, and amino acids make protein, and protein breaks down into amino acids. And that's how we make muscle, and that's how we do, different proteins in the body. We didn't know that there was these signals. We didn't
Mm.
know that these short peptides had some regulatory effect in the body, telling the body what to do, how to heal, how to repair. So it's absolutely fascinating what's going on in science and research right now. Um, growth factors like immunoglobulins. There's certainly stem cells and a number of these compounds that we're exosomes, and there's so many things going on right now that we're learning about how the body can heal itself, repair itself, and much of the time it can be done with thought,
Mm.
or it can destroy itself with thought.
Mm.
So, and again, this is where I think science is catching up to some of the stuff that we've been talking about for years in other circles, with all these healing modalities, with the more woo kind of areas in healing.
And as someone who has old programming where those thoughts, I literally feel those thoughts in my body, right? And that lack of healing or the healing. And I'm grateful to be aware of that. My wife, through her somatic work, is like really uncovered some stuff in her life, and therefore my life through that idea. And at the same time, it's like we do need to be taking care of our bodies, our sacred temples, as best as possible in the physical as well. And my second water related question to you would be, if you had a perfect water with a mineral composition, what would that look like? It's hard to answer for a number of reasons, but just a general sort of everyday type of water.
Yes, I would want some kind of like more living water that maybe not only had trace minerals uh, across the entire um, chart. Really, like, when I say trace minerals, I mean like literally, ideally, like you got more than 100 different
Mhm.
minerals in there, compounds, right? So maybe it has microbes in it that are living, that are positive bacteria for you. Maybe it's received plenty of sunlight and movement across rocks, and it is imbued with just living force. versus like this is where the research isn't that heavy yet, but when we think about ultra processed food and how dead it is, or when we have like a banana that's 3 weeks old versus pulling it off a tree and eating it, what are the implications of that when the apple has like wax and it has sprays on it that prevent it from essentially respiring and aging and potentially bruising, all of which helps it get shipped all around the world. I mean, what is the impact of that? Like our food, our meat. We're not eating meat that was just slaughtered. We're eating meat that's weeks, months, years old. What's the impact of that?
Hmm.
And is it any different with water? And then when you get into like microplastics and nanoplastics, which even when you put plastic bottles aside, cans
All
have
lined
a
with
plastic
plastic.
lining. Oh, those aseptic cardboard paper containers with water, those are healthy, right? Plastic lining. Oh, glass bottles, they're great. Oh, no, there's new research that says there's the paint on the cap that makes it 50 times worse than the plastic bottle. And then you get like BPA free bottles that are even worse because it's BPS. They don't tell you that. And then all of this water gets transported around through PVC pipes. Kind of frustrating
You
that
are
we can't escape all the micro and nanoplastics. There's more than a credit card or plastic spoon in your brain right now. It's in your penis, in your ovaries, it's in, yes, your brain, in your arteries, like implanted along your arterial walls. It's everywhere. It's pervasive and it's having a massive impact on inflammation throughout the body, endocrine disruption, meaning impairing hormone function, impairing your brain function with that inflammation and poor arterial resilience and dilation. And so, what's the net effect of all that? Like, we're
mm,
like, so that's really frustrating that our water is essentially filled with all of that. And then make it even worse, they did a study on bottled water, I think it was last year in 2024, that almost all of the branded bottled waters weren't even triple filtered water. They were just tap water. Aquafina, Dasani, they were all just tap water. That's it.
yep. Yep, municipally sourced tap water that they do filter using usually reverse osmosis. Smart water is vapor distilled, which is the most ancient form of water filtration, but it's still the same thing, basically. You're taking out almost all of the nutrients and minerals from that water. You're also getting all the bad stuff you're getting in municipal tap water because you have the people who are on 100 medications who are urinating, and that those chemicals do end up back into municipal water supplies because most of them tend to be open in some capacity. And so you really want to be drinking living water from a closed system that has zero human footprint or impact on that system. And so Dasani is Coca-Cola's version of Aquafina. They go to local municipalities close to their distribution centers because water is often seen as a commodity, number one, and number two, it is heavy. It's tough to transport. It's a game of numbers. It's about marketing. In order to make any money in water, you have to be selling millions of bottles. Enter microplastics and plastic bottles. There's a lot of research that actually the higher the mineral content of the water, the less of a solvent the water inherently is. So it'll dissolve whatever it's stored in less. The higher the pH of that, which tends to be correlated to that mineral composition of the water. The more acidic something is, like an energy drink that's in an aluminum can, it's going to uh, definitely bleach those microplastics in there. And then if you get a scratch on that aluminum can or it touches the top of the aluminum can, which is unlined, I mean, I'm even more concerned about heavy metal aluminum poisoning, which is linked to all sorts of neurological diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's, stuff like this, nerve pain and dysfunction. I'm concerned about that even more than microplastics with my drinks because we're breathing in so many microplastics. The biggest contributor to microplastics in our systems are tires. And water bottles get so much of the blame because we believe innately it's that intuition, it's that sense of knowing that water should be the healthiest thing we consume. And but our healthiest thing that we're consuming on a daily basis has these poisons in it. Well, what the heck, we're SOL.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
and as someone who, began this journey trying to launch the next big water business, through these lenses, thinking about what is the actual water that's in the container, the vessel, considering living water on a physical, spiritual, and emotional sense. And then thinking about the vessel, which I think is second as most important. I would rather drink an incredible quality living water, high great mineral composition out of a plastic bottle than a reverse osmosis filtered tap water out of the nicest glass bottle money can buy any day of the week. But it is important to have these conversations. And then thinking about, the Dr. Masaru Emoto of the world, these type of really out there concepts, like how Snapple used to have a joke on the lid, right? Well, what I'd like to do in my product that we're working on is have that instruction. Like, how do you consume this water? What does it mean to take in this water? What is it going to do in your body? And some sort of gratitude, something that is not religion specific, but something that is human specific. How do you set that intention? And what does that look like? So here's a little, so I'll do a little quick. This is a sneak peek of our first product ever. We're going to be hand stickering all these bottles and probably only available for purchase by pickup in Los Angeles. But very quick little sneak peek. You're the first person getting to see that outside my family.
Oh,
It is a plastic bottle, but the total dissolved solids is 910 milligrams per liter, which is a very high mineral content water. I know exactly when it was bottled, how it got to where it is, and it's going to be sold within, 1 to 2 months. Like a Fiji, for example, is bottled at the source in Fiji, halfway across the world, and then it travels by shipping container, which probably takes 6 months through some of the hottest parts of the world, and then it gets to the United States, probably in Long Beach, hot in the shipping container, and then it gets transported across the US to local distribution points. So it's probably in that bottle for a year on average. And it's, has a good mineral composition of 222 milligrams per liter, super high in silica, but still like that's a long time for any water. And it's the heating up of the plastic bottles that is really a main point of contention.
exactly.
But when you get a smart water, you get a Dasani, you get a Aquafina, those total dissolved solid levels are typically around 40 to 60 milligrams per liter, which is like a RO home system. That's typically what happens. If you have, you know, a semi-good working RO system at home, which is better than just drinking straight tap water for sure. Uh, but you're buying purified tap water. And these DBPs, these disinfection byproducts, if you go into New York City's tap water information and their water quality analysis and report, they hide them at the very bottom. And all these disinfection byproducts are interactions that are happening with these chemicals, these medications that people are urinating back into the water system, basically, that interact with the chloramines that the municipal system is disinfecting the water with, that is then creating all these new compounds. And that's the real scary stuff because each year there's new DBPs and there's zero research as to what the heck those are. And home RO filters, people don't even know if they're getting those out of the water that they're drinking. So that is really, who knows? It would be great if we each had a spring, back here in our yard. I mean, that's how people used to live.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it all goes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Sean. What water do you drink on a regular basis?
I have a whole home filtering system that is UV, RO, all the things, but it's not um yeah, it's not adding back in electrolytes. I do have a hydrogen water machine. So I've been playing with that, but
Have you felt any differences with the hydrogen implementation?
I don't know. I don't know. I've also played with deuterium depleted water and some of these kinds of things, and um, I'm not sure. Not sure.
So I feel similarly about the hydrogen component. There's a lot of people who have different hydrogen products and filters and um yeah, I'm not sold on it personally. Have I done a lot of personal testing on it? No, but the research that I've seen, I'm like, I don't know. I'm more interested in the mineral composition of the water that I can really get behind and I can physically feel how it affects my day-to-day life. So I'm more interested in that, I'd say. But the deuterium, not many people talk about this in the water community in particular. Can you kind of, I'm sorry, putting you on the spot here, but can you kind of talk about this idea?
Yeah, deuterium is like heavy hydrogen. So it's the example that gets thrown out a lot is the kind of overweight person trying to go through the skinny turnstile at the baseball game or basketball game or what have you. Basically, hydrogen ions are used to methylate and demethylate in a zillion chemical reactions in your body. Also, importantly, as part of the Krebs cycle, and in particular the electron transport chain, is the removal and addition of those hydrogen ions. And so deuterium, even at very small levels in parts per million, can start to play a role in slowing down your mitochondrial function, your
Mm,
production of ATP, as well as your body's ability to properly methylate. So the exact implications are not that clear, but deuterium is correlated to cancer. And so there's been a lot of um, protocols that involve having deuterium depleted water with people that are on cancer or trying to prevent cancer. But the deuterium depletion is a very expensive process.
yes,
And then there's some people that are wanting to do both the hydrogen enriched water with deuterium depleted in glass bottles and with maybe minerals but you're talking about like a $30 bottle of water and it starts to get a little crazy. So that's where the research or some of these concepts are at right now.
totally. And I've stumbled across some living water sources that have very, very low levels of deuterium uh, because they're so ancient and have never been in touch with humans. And so it's kind of the new frontier, the newest frontier, I'd say, in the water space. But that seems so kind of counterintuitive to add the hydrogen component to a deuterium depleted water.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, you can go on Amazon right now. I'm sure you've seen it, but anyone listening, you can look up deuterium depleted water. It's like 200, 300, $400 for a case of water. And oftentimes those waters are just purified, ultra, ultra, ultra purified. Uh, Municipally sourced tap water. So, um, yeah, it's interesting to kind of research that a bit more.
I think the only place where it could make sense to me is if I had a pretty advanced cancer and
Mm,
I had some money to burn. Uh, then maybe that is something that I might add into my protocol. But I think for most people, with the body's ability to heal itself, as we discussed, with how resilient we are, I don't think it's necessary, especially at those costs.
So for people who are interested in getting on supplements, maybe getting off some of their medication, do you recommend they see like an applied kinesiologist? I've seen multiple people since I was 15. When I was 14, 15, when I was young, I was suicidal. And to be that young and to have a pretty great life on the outside and be feeling those feelings is pretty insane. My mom was seeing this lady who was a holistic healer, supplement person. And then I started seeing her, got on fish oils when the doctors wanted me to get on antidepressants. And those changed my life, along with therapy and some other things that I was doing. And I've seen someone wherever I'm living ever since. And it is such a huge part of my life. Um, so where do you recommend people to kind of start that?
It's a great question. Obviously, following me would be great. Just at Shawn Wells, ShawnWells. I have some other friends I've mentored that put out really great content. Lucas, who is ergogenic.health on Instagram and some of the other platforms, does some great content. But I think beyond that is like who I would go to as far as doing these stacks, doing the testing needed. I think going to someone who's integrative, functional, and maybe naturopathic. And if you can really weave the ultimate, it would be a MD naturopath that's like doing progressive concierge medicine that like is doing all of the testing, can write you prescriptions for medications as needed because not all of them are bad. I think there's definitely the polypharmacy thing that's out of control, but there are some things that make sense at certain times. And then your supplements, but your supplements with blood work, with genetic testing, with microbiome testing, and then also peptides and stem cells, and someone who's combining and all this, someone who's looking at what your terrain looks like is the term that gets discussed a lot now with your microbiome throughout your body, like your exposure to mold, your exposure to parasites, and your viral load, and all of these things that often get undiagnosed, and then we're thinking that we're just tired all the time.
Yeah.
So these kinds of things are important.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it. And everyone still listening, go check out Sean's new book, Energy Formula, and the course associated with that. Follow Sean on all social media platforms and follow us at Liquid Life Wellness Water as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Sean. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Preston.
Awesome. See y'all next time. Bye bye.